Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Today is Thursday, June the 3rd, 2021, and we are here to discuss the news beginning here in Baltimore, Maryland, the United States, and beyond. A lot has been happening, and we're going to do our best to give you an update. We've been looking at, among other issues, the state of Black business. You know, this week we commemorated, not that it was a positive commemoration or a happy commemoration, but it's been 100 years since Tulsa's Black Wall Street was destroyed. And many of us, Black business advocates, have been very serious about celebrating the accomplishments of Tulsa's Black Wall Street because, quite honestly, it goes against the typical storyline. The typical storyline always paints Black as negative, scared, coward. That's what Hollywood does to Black history. But the truth of the matter is there's some really, really wonderful, strong, powerful, encouraging Black history that actually occurred that we want you to know about. Tulsa's Black Wall Street is just one of many, many, many stories. I got one for you. How many of you knew that Chicago, the great city of Chicago, was founded by a Black man? How many of you knew that? Well, if you didn't know, you should know, and it'll be in this upcoming book, and the book should be on the streets very soon. My coach told me, get off of the date and just let them know it'll be here soon. But there's one town out in California, Allensworth, founded by a Black man. You never knew these things. The first Black man in modern times to come to America was an explorer. But they'll tell you Blacks came here in 1619 as slaves. That's why you want to get this book, because we tell you when the first Black slaves actually did get here. Good morning, Rico Crawley. And the first Blacks got here 100 years before 1619. And that's my thing with the 1619 project. If you're going to correct history, then correct it. The first Blacks did not come here in 1619. It's wrong. You need to look up the Spanish slaver Vasquez, who got here in 1525. And he came with 20 Blacks that he called slaves. But in 2 months, Vasquez was dead, and those 20 Blacks then haultailed it to the Gullah Islands. So my point is we have a lot of history that we should know about that's been hidden right under our noses, just like Tariq did with his Hidden Colors video, talking about the Moors and all of this phenomenal. Did you know the Moors dominated Spain and Europe, beginning in the Iberian Peninsula for 800 years? Blacks, royalty all across Europe, every European nation, including England, Scotland, Germany, Black royalty. But we don't know these things. So we want to give you an update on the city of Baltimore. We told you about some legislation that went down or that was introduced last week. And as you know, we're very strong advocates of Black business on this show. And we don't like when anybody comes and tries to take a piece of our pie. Anybody. It's a majority Black city, and we ain't got to explain anything. Any questions? Okay. Without further ado, we're going to bring on the boss lady. Oh my God, lady, they talking about up and down. Guy called me about 15 minutes ago. They say that lady came straight on the show from the gym. Imagine if she would have put her lipstick on. They were talking about that thrashing that you put on these people. This coming on this show, half stepping and not knowing. They say, didn't you know you were going on this show? That's what you said.
Yeah, well, that's a tribute to our Baltimore City administration. Again, I want to preface that I'm not attacking this administration, but I am for the people. And I think anyone that's watched your show and seen me or watches our Sister Biz show on Wednesday knows that, we're about the people. And the logic behind that, even when I worked for the city, was that when you look at the organizational chart, when you all are looking at the budget, because they're having budget hearings right now, on top of that chart, you see the people, then it goes down with the city council and the mayor's office. So I try to speak for the people whenever I can. I am the people. I live in the city, and so I'm part of the majority. And that's all that was. It wasn't an attack, but you can't come on this show and you can't have a job. I haven't looked up his salary yet. I planned on doing that. But whatever it is, it's still our money. And we have a lot of unemployed people here. And some people that may have done a better job than him that live in the city that are advocating that maybe they should have considered. But you can't just bring your friends along and they don't know what they're doing. And friends call friends out. And that's all that was. So I wasn't trying to attack Mr. Stinnett. I hear he's a good guy. I don't know him personally, but you got to know your job, especially in the state of this city. The administration should have been very cautious on who they were picking, and he should have been able to speak about anything going on in the city at this point. 4 months, 3 months, 2 months. When you interview for a position at that level, you got to have your stuff together. You should know more of what's going on, what you're stepping into, and at the interview level. And that's what I would encourage your viewers. When you are going in for an interview, you should know everything about that organization. You should know everything about that position. You should know the data. You should have a plan. When you go into an interview, you should have a 30, 60, 90-day plan on what you're going to do when you're interviewing at that level. So even if Mr. Stinnett would have, just said that, like, this was my plan with this organization, that would have been good enough, but you got to have some data to back it up. You don't step into Baltimore City at the height of the administration and not know what you're doing. Our current mayor came in saying he's going to hit the ground running. His boy came on and he hit the ground and ran. That's, anyway. Donnie, this is your show. Please ask any questions that you may have. We have a lot to talk about, always. You're still on mute, Donnie. Sorry, I know you're not used to being on mute.
Tamara, first of all, let's talk about your show. Let's plug your show. You do a show on this network.
Yes, Donnie was gracious enough to add me to Nicole Orr, where she was hosting a show with a few other hosts, Sister Biz, on Wednesdays at 7 on this network, 7 p.m. We talk about business. We talk about just a lot of different things. Oh, thank you. I see a comment. Sorry, it threw me off. But Nicole likes to get into the Baltimore business. She's really into that. But we do try to encourage Black women-owned businesses, talk about that, what we should be doing, self-care. It's called Sister Biz. We have an Instagram page, Sister Biz Show, _ Sister Biz Show. And so we'll tell you who our guests are coming up. We'd like to have a lot of Black business women owners and things of that nature. So yeah.
Well, can you recap last night's show?
So last night's show was great. It was about finance. We had Kavette Kane, who is and some of you may be familiar with her. She was on Donnie's show before, and she's moved on to do a few other things. And so Kavette Kane, she's a financial expert, and we had her, and we had I can't remember her first name.
The lady that ran for mayor.
Yes, Ms. Bazemore, she actually ran for mayor on the Republican ticket this last election, which is interesting to see a Black woman on the Republican ticket. And all of the Republicans that did run were, I think, Black women. So as far as I recall or know, but yeah, it's interesting to talk to a Black Republican, a female Republican, especially during this whole Trump era. I think she was a long time Republican, talked about Reagan, and so I think it was in her family, and that happens. And you talk about the Democrats not being so great anyway. So it's not the party, it's the passion, and and then we also had a great guest, which I do want to talk about, James Patterson from M&T Bank. And what I wanted to highlight with M&T Bank, because of my passion for minority businesses in the city, is that M&T Bank has a minority business office. Like they have a minority and women business office, I think, which is stronger than the city's office, to make sure they're doing outreach with the minority businesses. Again, his name is James Peterson, and he teaches a 0 to 100 course, and he would invite me to teach on getting certified, but 0 to 100. And that's about going, the businesses, like going from 0 to $100,000. You need that $100,000 in order to get into some of these programs. So it's really a great course. It's coming up in September. I'm sure Donnie will advertise it. And I'm sure he'll have James on his show because he's really a great person. He's very passionate about Black businesses. He used to work for the city, and then he went on he went on to
let's just say hello to Michael Haney. He's flying over the Sahara Desert. That's a good 3-hour flight. So Michael Haney, shout out to Cairo. Shout out to my man King Tut. We be there to see you shortly.
Right, right. Oh, wow. Good morning, Mr. Haney. He always has great comments. He's very in tune. So yeah, so M&T Bank, I'm very impressed with what they're doing with the business. And they didn't just start this minority business program post Black Lives Matter even getting any attention, or post, this uprising. They've had that program for a few years now. It was just something that they brought into the community, and they do some really great outreach. So I'm very excited to talk about that. And they have a program, the Weaver program, that Weaver Awards, where they're awarding 10 awards. Was it 10 or I think it's 10 awards to local community members. So I want everyone to hear this. In Baltimore City, if you know someone that's like really engaged in the community, that goes around, he was saying, picks up the trash, just someone that watches the kids so people can go to work, those that don't look for that limelight. You don't really hear about them, but they're like the knit of the neighborhood. Please look up the awards. Yes, weareweavers.org, and they'll get a prize, and you can nominate your neighborhood. It's only for Baltimore City. And that's what M&T Bank has partnered with this organization to give money to those people that are, keeping the neighborhoods together. So please make sure you nominate folks. And I'm looking forward to seeing who wins and what neighborhoods. And we've got some really strong community members that aren't in front of the media, that we don't know what they're doing. And I'd love to see who comes out of this. So please make sure you go on and nominate your neighbors that are really doing good work at what a community is supposed to be.
Now, I appreciate you bringing on Jim Peterson. M&T Bank began here in Baltimore, correct? Did it start here?
I don't know factually. I can look it up, but I don't want to say anything. I don't want to get fact checked.
Well, considering Wells Fargo, Bank of America, I remember when Sheila Dixon sued Wells Fargo. These banks have had a history of predatory lending, treating our community with disdain, disrespect, let alone redlining. What makes M&T stand out? I mean, it's got to be more than just their community outreach. I would imagine somewhere along the line it has to do with integrity.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jim will love to come on. And I forget the name of his supervisor, Deandra. I can't remember her name, but she's a Black woman that works for M&T and runs that whole minority business organization, and she's been awarded for the work that she's doing in the community. So it would be good to have both of them on to speak about what they're doing and what M&T Bank is doing different. I'm sure they can articulate that, because I remember going to one of their events downtown when I did work with the city and took my staff, and just hearing some of the work that they're doing. It's remarkable. And it really is remarkable.
So one thing that has become painfully clear through COVID for some of us slow people is the necessity of having a business relationship with the bank. A bank, several banks. Zakiya Bazemore said it last night. A lot of people were not able to get PPP because they didn't have 2 or 3 years of their taxes done, or they didn't have a business bank account. We weren't physically in shape when it comes to our businesses. So,
yeah.
So not only M&T, I can't wait till you bring somebody on from Harbor Bank.
Oh yeah, that would be great. I didn't have access to anyone, from Harbor Bank. Again, Jim and I knew each other from working for the city, and I was familiar with his 0 to 100 program because I taught a module in that course. And so yeah, it would be great to have different people from the banks come on, especially now with the loans and the different, EIDL, everything coming out to re-stimulate the economy. That would be great to have all the different local banks come on and talk about their programs.
Well, thanks to you, Tamara, a lot of news has come out of City Hall, at least Paul Taylor's office. They have the whole DPW Small Business Development Program has come back. They have enrollment through August 23rd. You can go to Be More News. They also had a meeting on getting with the MDOT. That was on Tuesday, but it has something on here I really wanted to share with you. Okay, entrepreneurship matters, and that's today. You can go to BeMoreNews.com. It's a Zoom webinar hosted by Johns Hopkins and the mayor's office of small and minority business at 1 o'clock tonight. So there are resources out here for businesses, but I just think in a majority Black city, we're supposed to have so much more. This is supposed to be an all day, everyday conversation. Your thoughts?
Well, you can have all the seminars and gatherings that you want, and you can teach, but I think a lot of the teachings become redundant. So I think that we need to go a step further. And like I said on the show 2 days ago, or whenever I popped on after my gym workout, we need hands-on with our businesses, and so we can have seminars. I know Hopkins, I was part of Hopkins Local when I was working for the city, their inaugural group of community members that were bringing in, to kind of help Hopkins bring in more local employees and businesses. So we were trying to get some ideas together, and that may be part of that. But, it has to be hands-on. Hopkins has to hire people that live here. We have to, a lot of people may have a record, and that's stopping them from getting
But
employment.
Hopkins has a record too. See, Hopkins is one of those repeat offenders from a social justice standpoint in our community, so they don't get a pass. Matter of fact, they get a lot of free taxes, from what I understand.
Right. So when you look at Baltimore City, Hopkins is one of the largest employers, and Baltimore City, if you look at our budget, that's a big business. So my whole argument is, if both of these offending parties are operating in the same city, and this isn't the biggest city in America, all the oppression and the lack of opportunities going on, it's tenfold. You have Hopkins and the city almost mirroring their conduct. So you look at the state of the city, and the state of the city is because you have these two giants that aren't enforcing or doing the things that they're supposed to do. They're trying and they're working on it, but we need more than trying. We need it done. We need to exceed every expectation that the city has. This is a majority Black city that we need to be doing better. We absolutely need to be doing better. Our entities like City Hall and Johns Hopkins have to do better.
And Tamara, one of the things that we all appreciate about you so much is you're not asking for anything complicated. You're asking for elected officials, and if you're Black, you're asking Black elected officials to have some fortitude in standing up for Black people. It's not complicated. When I hear Nicole on the show, she's not asking for anything magnanimous from John Bullock. She's saying, hey, you live right behind me 1 block. I want you to come over here and see how my business is doing.
Right. If you're a city council member and you're not engaging with the businesses in your neighborhood, and we see these videos of them walking around, doing these walks, but they're not really doing that normally unless the cameras are around. So, that's just a problem. But to them, it's an extra check. So we've got the survival. You always talk about it, the survival mode, and that's all they're in, a survival mode. I need to get this extra check, but it's at the mercy of our people. We're struggling here, and we shouldn't be struggling here. We've got an engine here. We have that minority business program should be so great. You know, when I talked to Boston, you missed the meeting, Donnie, but we set up that meeting with the Boston group. When I talked to them, they were shocked that the Baltimore City Minority Business Enterprise Program was doing so bad. Because in their complaint to the Justice Department that they filed in February, they used Baltimore City's laws. They don't even have the laws that we have on the books. They use their laws as an example of what it should be. But when I told them the city's not even enforcing that, they went into shock mode because that was part of their complaint. Look, Baltimore City has these great laws, but what they don't know is Baltimore City is not enforcing those laws. So the Justice Department will be very interested when they find out that Baltimore City has laws on the books that looks so great, mentioned in another complaint, but they're not even enforcing it. So
I wanted to ask you, not long ago, there was an expose done on the city's state of minority business enterprise by the Baltimore Business Journal. What did it reveal?
So when you and I and Wayne Frazier of the Maryland Washington Minority Contractors Association, when we organized that protest in front of City Hall and had some folks come out and protest about how their businesses were being impacted, Baltimore Business Journal was there. There were other journalists there from other outlets that chose not to report on it. That, with a business saying, I'm going out of business.
These are so-called journalists in the city of Baltimore. Why didn't they cover it? Because their bosses told them not to.
Exactly.
Why did their bosses tell them not to? Because that's a part of the institutional racism we're fighting against, like Black Wall Street, right?
They're all lock and step. A lot of the media in this city, and that's why it's important for people to watch, BlackUSA.News. It's important for people to watch BeMoreNews.com because you're gonna get the real. We're not on here just ranting. When I know when I come on here, I'm fact checking. I know what I'm talking about, and I don't think anyone's gonna say I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm very astute with that. I know what I'm talking about. This is
what I love the most? You're not getting paid. It's not like the city of Baltimore is paying you to, Tamara, paint a good picture for us.
They couldn't. When I was getting paid by the city, I still wasn't painting a good picture for them. I was telling too much truth because that's how you fix things. Baltimore City is the friend that if you tell them, hey, look, your shirt's not tucked in, they're not going to talk to you anymore. And I was telling them all the time, your fly is open, your fly is open, and they didn't want to hear it anymore. So you don't want to change when you don't want to hear it.
But these people run for office and they say these wonderful speeches. I got a new nickname for the mayor, but I'm going to save it for another week. But often I see him at this press conference, at that press conference. I've never heard him talk about Black business.
But
I heard him mention through the campaign, Cold Spring, plumbing and heating, but I ain't heard a damn word about Black business. And what troubles me is one of the first pieces of legislation that went through that Board of Estimates was a $42 million contract. $42 million. There was no argument. It's just a sign up. But when it comes time for Black business, we gotta talk about it. Why you gotta talk about feeding your own people? I don't. Right. What's wrong? See, that's insanity. That's like going with a girl that's cheating on you. Oh God.
Yeah, well, we keep electing these folks based on what they say, and really, like I said earlier this week, we don't really have a good pool of candidates. To be quite honest, all the people are the same. They're all coming from the same regime. They're all, sucking the same blood. They're all, they're all part of that same vampire clique. They're just sucking the city dry. It's not meant for the city to survive and thrive, and our businesses to survive and thrive. Here's an example. So we were talking yesterday or last night about a recent malware that was embedded in the Baltimore City system. So we know about the ransomware attack about almost 3 years ago. We know the ransomware attack.
It was the mayor.
That's right. It happened as soon as the turnover
occurred. That's when he was wearing that pink blazer every damn place.
I wish his pink blazer was the only issue we had with his whole administration.
I
But
wish one of y'all would have stole his pink blazer.
so we had this ransomware attack, right? And that's when I was working for Baltimore City. I just really started in that position of running the MBE, the Minority Business Office. And what I realized is to resolve the ransomware attack, a leader of the Baltimore City Information Technology Group was selecting companies in Virginia, California, like everyone was out of state. And so my argument was, why aren't we using companies, local companies? And so now we see that there's been another instance. There's some malware within the system. Whoever the hackers were, never executed this malware. And so the
Oh,
city,
they left something behind.
I don't know if something was behind or something was newly introduced. So the problem I want to bring up is they had an emergency contract to, I guess, clean this up, but it was with a Virginia company, a cybersecurity company.
So there's no company here that could.
So what I did, I want your viewers now to look up cybersecurity companies in this area and see how many pop up. Now, I'm not even going to go off on it has to be a Black business tangent, because it would have been nice if they went. Now, they didn't have to bid this contract. They didn't have to solicit it because it was an emergency. And all of the IT contracts, I can tell you, they always try to say everything was an emergency. There's no planning.
Security companies, Baltimore.
Read the list off. I did it this morning. There's a list of companies. So when you drive downtown and you see empty buildings, vacant buildings, that's why. The city won't even contract with their own businesses. And then they got the Baltimore partnership trying to bring businesses here. But you are City Hall. You don't have to solicit the contract because it's an emergency. You can choose whoever you want. You choose a company out of Reston, Virginia. I used to work in Reston. That's almost like the Silicon Valley of this area. They're doing well. Their businesses, their buildings are not empty. It's beautiful. There's no trash. What are you doing here? And so I say to use a local business just because it's common sense. But also, we talk about STEM. We talk about science and technology for our youth. These businesses here are the ones that may go to the school and teach those STEM programs. When you use the businesses, local businesses, where a child's mother and father can go get a job, and that child can go work for that company or intern for that company instead of being on the street with a squeegee brush.
Well, Tamara, maybe Brandon is going to surprise us. Maybe there's something we just don't see. Maybe he's working some magic, and all of a sudden we're going to realize, wow, we didn't know he was doing all of this stuff.
But I thought he was being transparent. Their whole thing, they all ran this transparency. So if it's coming, when's it coming?
I thought we clarified that transparency is only a word used by candidates.
Oh, okay.
Once you get in office, that word goes. It goes with Jim Smith out the window back to Baltimore County.
We don't even want to talk about that. I mean, Jim, that's a whole mess.
I want to know, how do Black people continually end up being the stripper? How come we're never the ones that's making the money? We always working for somebody. I was watching SWAT last night. Believe it or not. Hondo, I'm a big fan of Hondo, but they were about to fire his chief, the white guy. And the chief said, no, you can't mess with Hondo. I'm going to step on the line. I'm going to fall on the sword. And then Hondo came in. No, chief, I'll fall on the sword. Now, I want to see the movie where Hondo say, yeah, you go ahead and fall on the sword. Thank you. I appreciate your service. Why we always got to be lapdogging for somebody? I ain't falling on the sword.
I don't know. I don't know.
We keep losing. Look at these. Okay. I asked you to come on this show yesterday because yesterday was the Board of Estimates meeting. And you stay on me regularly. You stay on me kind of like a coach saying, do your push-ups, do your push-ups. Watch this Board of Estimates meeting. Watch this Board of Estimates meeting. I'm watching this meeting, and I'm not sure if it was yesterday, but this white man come on, and the white man is holding Black people accountable for not holding people accountable.
Yeah, the
Instead
one
of
that you
black
watched.
people speaking up for us, it's a white man speaking up for us. And I'm wondering, well, what the hell is going on? And what is all of this equity and diversion stuff if it doesn't translate into dollars for the black community? Can you explain what happened?
So there was, it was I'm gonna get the date for the viewer so they can go back. You can always go back and watch the Board of Estimates hearings on YouTube. So the hearing was, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. And I want to get the exact date if anybody knows it. But there was a lot of talk about this hearing because there was a contract that was being awarded. I don't remember exactly what it was for. I haven't watched it in a while. And the contractor that was being awarded to they're saying it was minority business, but the second lowest bidder, their attorney did some research, sent an investigator, and said this business is a front. It's a that's what they call, like, a lot of some minority businesses will take 60 cents and say, look, I'll act like I'm doing the business, but they're really fronting for the white business. So the white business gets, the whole 100,000 or 200,000 or $2 million, $3 million contract, and you just get a little bite just to act like you're really the one running the contract, or that you're really providing staff as a subcontractor, So
And
that's what
that was your job at City Hall to identify those things and stop it. And
the
that's what
pass
you did.
throughs. Right.
Yep.
And there were several companies, I can tell you, that I submitted to the Inspector General, Isabel Cummings, that I believe
Oh, that
were
little
pass
ugly
throughs.
lady running around chasing Marilyn Mosby looking like Miss Ginsburg.
Yeah, I did give her, Miss Ginsburg. I wouldn't give her that much. I thought we were cool and thought she was working on things, but I did give several companies that we suspected as pass-throughs, and that's what they call them in the industries. They're pass-through companies, and nothing ever happened. I haven't seen anything happen with an investigation. So, but she is very much on the Mosbys. Yeah, she's got a lot of time for that. So, pass-through companies, they're supposed to be penalized criminally. The code, you can penalize them criminally, and you can penalize, with money. And Philadelphia, again, I talked about it before, Philadelphia does a good job. Their IG office, Inspector General's office, they look at their public record. You can go online and look at the Office of Inspector General for the city of Philadelphia. They are penalizing people for that pass-through. So we were working on.
Why isn't Baltimore? Because remember, with all due respect, after we had the show when we brought Dana Peterson more on here and things, and then we brought it back on, but that's a part of her bailiwick, right?
Office of Civil Rights, or what it was called, or the equity, whatever it is called at this point. They actually, it really is in the MBE office that has the law in there. Should enforce it would be the Inspector General. They can investigate it. It should go to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General should prosecute those cases. That's what I see in other states. You can look it up. Minority business. If you Google that, you'll see a lot of attorney general's offices, they get it from the cities or the jurisdictions, and then they prosecute them criminally.
But why isn't I almost called it Ginsburg, and I only said it because I had, it's got the little hair going back thing. Why isn't Isabel Cummings on top of issues like this? She's over there looking where Maryland has her, Florida house. Why isn't she on things like this? We raised this question way back when it happened. This is important to us. Why isn't she going after the corruption that's right there in her face? Why isn't she?
Because Isabel will say that she doesn't investigate things unless someone reports it. I don't know where that's written. But that's her take on it. So, again,
she doesn't represent the people of Baltimore. She represents herself and white interests, because this is a majority black city, and I don't hear nobody talking about this but you.
But if you look at her previous reports, during my tenure there were a lot of things coming out of the MBE office. I haven't seen any really since I've left. I think maybe one thing came up, but it was really a Black company that had some issues with their MBE performance. So I haven't seen anything really. I need to go back and look at the reports to see if she's still investigating. But if you don't have anyone submitting that information to you, again, I have submitted other information to her about other contracts and other questions I had about pass-through companies with some of these very large infrastructure contracts. There is a lot of questionable minority businesses that I think are just fronts. and they're employing the employees of the large white companies. So so the MBE program is actually assisting white out-of-state contractors to make more money off of the backs of our businesses and our people.
Why don't the Black people working there say anything about this? You know, I mean, it's like, where's your self-pride? Like, oh, you over there messing with them? You can't mess with them. Where's your Black pride? Like, they Black. They did everything they're supposed to do. Where's the spirit? Like, oh no, you can't do that to them. What happened to the Black people working there in city government? What happened to them?
Because they're all working for, they're not really working for us. They're working for this hidden figure that's really running the city, and it's not a Black person. You know,
but at some point, don't you say to yourself, because I understand that the position you had, I hear there's going to be more turnover.
Of course there is, and so who's going to run it? I saw the fix coming, and so what was happening was, and I'm calling names today because I don't feel like it. Kim Morton was moving people from, friends. So what they did was, like, during the end of when the administration was ending, it's like, let's give these people jobs that they know they can compromise, and they have friends, and they moved a person into my office.
Black people.
Yeah, they moved up yes, she was the chief of staff, and they moved people into your office. I was asking for people from other offices that knew how to do what I needed to get done, and they moved somebody else in. So there's always a fix. They know what they want to do. They know who they want in place, who will do what they want them to do. If there's a turnover in that office, I'm going to have a problem. That's going to be a problem.
Get ready.
Because that's going to be a problem, because that was a fix. That was a fix. They had to get me out, and then they have to get somebody else out. That's a problem for me. The turnover in that office. So the Baltimore City MBE office is running the law department. Please look at the chiefs. We're called chiefs in each department, like within the law department, you have chiefs that were running it. I was a chief, and the current chief is LaShella Miller. Look at the turnover in the MBE office chiefs. Over the last 10 years, it's constant. But look in the contracts department. Look in the other department heads in the law department. They've been there. One of them has been there for about 50 years. There's no turnover in any other office in the Baltimore City Law Department than the MBE office. There's more turnover there than any other office. No one gets fired. No one gets reprimanded, but in that office. What is that telling you?
That people are watching who is in that position, who is in your position, who will be in your position. That position is a gatekeeper.
When I came in 2018, I believe it was 2018, May of 2018, they were working out my predecessor. They were massaging him out, and they were prepping me to replace him. Okay. Then they brought, when I was in and started doing things, they were prepping me and getting me out. So there's the turnover is ridiculous since 2018. If this current chief is relieved or she leaves, that will be 3 chiefs, 18, 19, 20, 20, in 4 years.
That's like 92Q making Mark Clark train pork chop.
Right. So the question here was Sharon Pender and Carla Nelson part of the leadership there? There's a difference in offices, Mr. Haney, and that's what people don't understand. That is the the mayor's office of Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Development. That is the office that Sean Stinnett works in now. The law department, it's so confusing to people. That's a separate entity. They enforce the code. Look at the Baltimore City Code. Article 5, Subtitle 28 and 29. They are they enforce, they penalize, they set the goals. Sharon Pender's office and Carla Nelson's office didn't do that. Now, I know that Carla Nelson was friends with Dana Moore, and she was trying to bring her into the office to be my deputy, but I think she only wanted to work as a contractor. And when you start hiring your friends, you got some problems.
At the end of the day, we don't care if you have a designer name, a famous name. All we want to know is, are you helping Black businesses? Because what I've seen in my 25, 27 years as a journalist, people mostly helping themselves.
Exactly. And
then some people go overboard, like Kathy Pugh, and help themselves too much.
Right, but Kathy Pugh there was other people getting help, but she was the only one that went to jail, and her aides, all the people of color that were into that. You talked about Jim Smith. There's a lot of other people involved in that are still walking around. So I'm not covering for Catherine Pugh. I'm not making an excuse for her. But when you are a politician and you start playing games with these white folks and think you're part of their clique, you're not. You're the first one that's going to go
I
down.
keep trying to tell him. I told Anthony McCarthy this over 20 years ago. You can tap dance. You can do whatever you want. They will never accept you. Why do we keep wanting to be accepted by people that did this to Black Wall Street? I don't want to be around you.
No, I mean there are some people that are down for the cause, and sometimes it's easier for people to take it from a white person. So I always talk about Larry Krasner because I'm not fawning over this white man, but he is the DA in Philadelphia, and when you watch the documentary about his election, and he's talking about racism and he's talking about mass incarceration. The black people around him say, it's probably easier for people to take it from this white man than it is for them to take it from someone that looks like me. That's unfortunate that we can't talk about our own issues and it's accepted, but it takes a white person to come in and step in and fix it because no one wants to hear it from us, but we're the ones experiencing it. So me as a black woman trying to fix a minority business program is not accepted. I don't know who Jim Shea is going to put in that position. It may not look like you or I, or it may be one of the previous administration's buddies that they slipped up in the office. But I can tell you what, the program's not going to work. It's not going to work until it hits the front page of the news when some things have to happen to make it work.
Well, the way it looks like it's going, as long as Brandon stays in his lane and keeps the status quo and makes sure that white people get paid, he'll be around because apparently that's what the city of Baltimore wants out of a black leader. We don't want a Marion Barry type. We don't want a Maynard Jackson type. We want a go along to get along kind of guy.
And so your viewer Jones, you're correct. That's discriminatory practices. They've continued to do them. We can prove them. So, whatever happens, happens. Discriminatory practices within a minority business program that actually sets the businesses backwards. And yeah, so Brandon is flowing with the status quo, but he has an afro. That's my saying now. He's got an afro. Okay, that's nice. That's cute. And he likes Wu-Tang. Shout out to Nicole for that. He loves Wu-Tang. Okay, great. You're cool. But you're not effective. So your viewers have to organize. I'm gonna say it again. But in that last election, we had about 5,000 candidates. Where was the Marion Barry candidate at? Who was it? I'm gonna play that Jeopardy music. Do do do. Who was the candidate, Donnie? Who was gonna change anything? I'm gonna give you a second. Exactly. Again, to my point earlier this week, they put out all these BS candidates, and we don't have a choice. So I don't want to get angry at the Baltimore City voter because the voter hasn't had anybody really to get behind. I mean, we didn't have a choice.
Election, I believe in me.
So if anyone wants to be bold enough to put in the comments, who did you vote for? Let us know who they voted for. I want to see who the viewers actually voted for. A lot of them
supported Brandon. He claimed to have the support of the millennials who don't know they hear from their hind parts.
Because he was hanging out at those
political game.
He was hanging out at the protests. He was hanging out at the protests trying to be cute. He was hanging out at the protests just trying to mend with the millennials. And he kept trying to talk about his age and 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 how young he was. And that's basically what did it, that he was supposed to be this younger person to change. But he wasn't. He's not that young, number one. And he's been in office for a very long time. He's been tainted. He's been
12 years, just like Jack.
Who's his mentor?
Brandon?
Brandon's mentor. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would imagine Stephanie Rawlins Blake, and I would imagine vicariously Martin O'Malley.
So there you go. You are not progressive. I'm going to tell you right now today, And if Brandon and any of his friends are looking, I'm going to look in the camera. Brandon Scott, you are not progressive, honey. You are not. You have not made any change. You have not. You are the status quo, and I want you to know that. I want him to know that today.
What would a progressive mayor be doing?
A progressive mayor would have went in there and cleaned house. I don't care if they would have had to do all the damn work themselves. All them agency heads would have been gone. Okay, you wouldn't have been bringing people from all over. Of course, you have to look at to bring in the best candidates. But what Brandon did, if you look at the first 100 days, the money went to bringing in high level people that we have no accountability of how they're even going to do anything. Changing positions and making cute names and putting equity and all that stuff in front of everything doesn't make you progressive. Action makes you progressive. I can't say it enough. Watch the PBS special on Larry Krasner. That's what a progressive candidate does. On a snow day, Donnie, his like first week or two in office, on a snow day, he had those prosecutors come in and get their shit. Excuse my language. They had to clean out their damn offices if they weren't down with what he was trying to do and end all that mass incarceration. You had to go. Bye. There was no questions asked. Snow day.
You know, it's like we have to wait for white people to say, oh, it's okay for you to fight for this. Now you can go out there and do it. It's like like Tulsa and Black Wall Street. We did not need a President Joe Biden to go to Tulsa. I don't really see, other than the 5%, he could have sent the email for that. And, you know, I don't trust him anyway.
Well, you know, I'm not. It was a good step. I'm glad to see it because you can't, like he was saying, we can't hide the history. It's there, and he needed to be there. He needed to look into the eyes of the 106 and 107-year-old people that were sitting there, that were children, and saw their city burning. For what? Because they were doing well. They're burning our city right now. You were saying this is Black Wall Street. This is a port city.
Yes.
This city has value. Don't let anybody tell you this city is this and that. When people talk negative about Baltimore, no, this city has potential. And I'm going to fight them. I'm fighting them tooth and nail. We're not going anywhere. We're going to fight. We're going to make our minority businesses survive. And if we can't do it with the help of City Hall, we're going to do it outside by ourselves. We can do it without them. We will do it without them, but I'm going to make sure, I'm going to force them to do what they say they're going to do. So then they add the LGBTQ program to the minority business program, and the minority business program isn't even working. And they didn't even increase the budget.
Slow down.
Okay.
Slow down.
Sorry.
So we are advocates, and we have used this term repeatedly, MBE. And unfortunately, that's our category, Black business. It's minority business enterprise. And it's also WBE, Women's Business Enterprise. And Tamara, you correct me if or when I go astray. In 1978, Perrin J. Mitchell, Congressman, the Black Caucus, I believe President Jimmy Carter, they made this push to get Blacks federal contracts. And as they went to open the door for more opportunities for Blacks, they realized that you got to do a report card. And every time they did a report card, these minority business enterprise programs failed. So Perrin J. Mitchell helped level the playing field. The Black Caucus helped level the playing field. But the unfortunate thing is minority business enterprise, managing those is kind of like having a lawn of very aggressive grass out front. You have to regularly cut it. You have to regularly do a disparity study. You have to regularly look at the results of the disparity study to implement the change that's necessary. And if you are not as aggressive on cutting that grass as the grass is on growing, then that grass is going to grow out of control. And Baltimore does not have a lawnmower service for the minority business enterprise. It doesn't have a maintenance program to effectively ensure that Black people, and we hate the term minority, truth be told, that Black businesses are getting a fair share. And Tamara's job was to make sure that Black people, that everybody got a fair share, that the law was implemented, and the law says give Black people business. But no, now, just like in everything else, here comes somebody else wanting to cash in on our 250 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow. We've proven we've been the damn victim. But now, here we go again. Same old crap, dog, just a different day. Here go, what's her name? Odette Ramos, who ran for office every bit of 17 times. She finally gets in there, and now we realize she's got a thing against black men.
So what happened with, there was a Croson case in Richmond. You know, the city of Richmond had awarded a contract to a black contractor and kind of gave him a preference. And so a white contracting company said, "Oh, you can't do that. Why would you do that?" So when you were talking about Parent Mitchell, that was the early days of the program where before the disparity studies even were needed, they would try to have a preference because we knew there was systematic discriminatory practices, systematic racism within contracting. But Croson v. Richmond, I forget the exact year, it was in the late 80s. That case turned it over where the Supreme Court said you have to prove that there's a disparity. Okay, now we know there's a disparity. We were slaves. We know that there's just discriminatory practices in general towards black men and women. So they have to prove a disparity study. So right now the city is undergoing a disparity study. I want your viewers to know.
1988.
1988, like, yes, okay. So the city is paying a consultant to come in. You have to prove every 4 years there's a disparity in contracting, subcontracting only. I know there's discrimination directly from the city, but let's just go there.
About the prime contracts.
No,
we talking about the little sirloin burgers.
No, and you don't have to let your viewers know, you don't have to register in the MBE program to bid for a contract in the city. You don't.
You can just go down there and get your head chopped off for free.
You can just bid. Yeah, you can bid as a prime. You don't have to be an MBE. You don't get any preference. It's not like the federal government where you get points, for those things. You don't get any points. So anybody can bid. You don't have to. You don't have to subscribe to that. But if you want to be a subcontractor, when these white boys come and they want to bid, or even a black business, any prime, there's goals set on each contract according to the availability. So we have 10 businesses available to do this. You've got to use one of those businesses as your subcontractor. So we're taking the lower tier, okay? And so now there's a disparity study going on right now. Before I left, when I came into that office, when I came into that office, we needed to do an RFP. That's a request for a proposal for a consultant to come in and do the disparity study. At that time, Catherine Pugh had already executed an executive order introducing the LGBTQ community into contracting and saying we're going to start.
Wait a minute. Stanky Leg is responsible for LGBTQE?
Well, she did an executive order back in 2018, I believe, that came out that said we're going to start incorporating LGBTQ into our contract.
They weren't even getting a fair share.
Right. So the issue was, I'm going to say Jabari Lyles is the city's liaison to the LGBTQ community. So when my predecessor left and he helped Catherine Pugh draft that, I didn't really agree with it. And for this reason, there's a greater chapter of LGBTQ or whatever. There's a chapter that was going to certify these businesses. The LGBTQ community was going to have to pay a fee to get certified. Number one, that was a problem because the minority business doesn't have to pay a fee. The woman-owned businesses don't pay the city a fee. We didn't know how to certify LGBTQ business. My office, my team, we didn't know how to go through that process. So this outside entity was pushing this because they were going to get paid to do it. So now why are you going to charge the LGBTQ community for an application when you're not charging anybody else? That's discrimination. So that's already a problem. I said, we can't do that. Then we don't even know that there's a disparity. And like I said earlier this week, the LGBTQ community in Baltimore City is majority black. So they're already in the program. Think about it. If I'm a black and I identify as LGBTQE, I can get in the program. If I'm a black man, I can get in the program. If I'm a white woman, I can get in the program. The only thing I can't get is a white man.
The $1 million question that I don't want anybody to miss. The only demographic that benefits from Odette Ramos's legislation is who?
A white male that identifies as LGBTQ or E. So, and again, if there is a disparity, If you and I, for our program, there's a disparity, almost $1 million. It's about $800,000 disparity study going on right now. What I did is I added LGBTQ business enterprises to that disparity study and said, first, let's see if there's a disparity. That's what we have to do. And the city doesn't even have a veterans program. How are we going to do this? And we don't even have a veterans program. So in the disparity study, you can go on citybuy.com and look it up. There's an RFP. It was awarded last year. There's a disparity study ongoing right now to show if there is a disparity in the LGBTQ business enterprise community so that the city can justify having a program. Yet your city council member who's getting paid about $70,000+ a year sat down, Odette Ramos, called me. You sat down and you drafted legislation and you don't even know what the hell you're doing. I'm going to say that to the camera. You should have known. If you're part of approving a budget, you should have known the city is already spending $800,000+ to draft an RF to see if there's a disparity. In fact, a disparity. We've already been down this road with the executive order, and the LGBTQ liaison Jabari Lyles, who is still there today, said, yes, let's sit back. But the first application I got after that executive order was a white man. So let's see if there's a disparity with white men that identifies LGBTQ. Fine. But let's see first, because we have to see, to keep the program open, we got to see if there's a disparity between me, a Black woman contracting with the city. We know it's there.
Well, do you hear anybody fighting for Black businesses right now? Like Odette is fighting for gay white men?
Well, Councilman Burnett, but I did see his name on there, who was a councilman I do support. His name was on that legislation. The problem is they don't know. And I wish he would have come to me and talked about it, because that was a waste, because you have a study going on right now. Why are you drafting legislation?
Christopher Burnett's name was on there. Yeah. Conway's name was on there.
It sounds good, but it stinks. Why put the LGBTQ community into a program that you know isn't already working for the Black woman, the Black man, even white? It's not working already. So now you're putting them in a program, and then you're approving the budget. You see, they only increased the budget by $250,000, which is the salary of the city administrator. Okay, they already dropped the budget by $400,000 3 years ago, so they're not even caught up to where they were before.
I wanted to ask you this. Does the office you used to work in Embu, do they have enough people and enough money to do the job effectively?
No, not even with the current. They tried to make it look like, oh, we're giving them an extra $250,000 this year. Look back, look at the Baltimore Business Journal review. The Baltimore Business Journal, what came out was, and a comparison I did, and I submitted for the city, and I asked them to look at it. The numbers of similar sized cities with similar operating budgets all had bigger MBE offices than ours. They had more money going towards those programs than Baltimore City. We're behind. And I told the city that 2 years ago. We're still behind.
What's wrong with Jack? What's wrong with Brandon that they won't put money into MBE? Do you think some white man is paying them? Look here, boy, you can't be freeing your people like that. You go and play dumb like you don't know about this. What makes a Black mayor not understand the value of the MBE office? Do you have to have a special kind of certified specialization degree to understand the nuances? Or do you just need somebody to say, hey, get that man some business, get that woman some business? They Black.
You don't have to say it. The law says you're supposed to. And they will award a contract at the Board of Estimates. And then, they'll be like, oh, look, the goals are great. It's a great number. But what they fail to say is there's no compliance on that contract. These people aren't getting paid. They never use these people. They never use the businesses. So they go to the Board of Estimates. Don't let that little tap dance show impress you.
After all that we go through, it still doesn't mean that they actually get the work.
No, there's no way of identifying. And so when you watch the Board of Estimates, you're like, and Bill Henry's like, oh yeah, DPW is doing great on this contract. No, I want to see tell me how many people got paid last month. How many minority business got paid? What's the compliance number right now? What's the percentage? The goal is 20% MBE, the aspirational goal.
Well, let me ask you, how long before?
So
Is Bill Henry, is Nick Mosby standing up for black people?
They're standing up for it at the Board of Estimates, but they didn't stand up for it in that budget because they should have had more money. They're not standing up with enforcement. When's the last time at the Board of Estimates you've seen one company get penalized for not complying with the code? Not since I left.
Yeah.
So they want to stand up for it, make the office penalize people that are not in compliance with the code.
Okay, period. So what's going on when I see yesterday items being tabled? Oh, we got to get back to that. We'll defer.
Distractions, because you're not going to go back and look. Nothing happens. They've already made their decision. When you go to the Board of Estimates, you can protest all day long. They're not going to change their mind. I've rarely seen them change anything. They've already been briefed.
Why not?
They've already been briefed by the agencies. They're always going to take the side of the agency.
So so we got black people working in agencies in a black city, in agencies that don't serve black people. So everybody that's black in the city hall should just go jump in the harbor then.
There's some black and there's some white, and they hang out and they go to happy hour together, and they go to happy hour with the chief of staff, and they're all friends and they're all part of the same damn system.
I don't know if they've seen the news lately, but Baltimore is like killing fields. Nobody wants to come in. So whatever they doing.
That's the plan. Get us out of here. Move in. This is a valuable port city. We have a port here. Get us out. Get the black folks out of here. Don't create any opportunities. Make sure the schools are terrible. Give the low-income vouchers outside the city. Push us out. Everything sucks. How hard is it to get something to work? Nothing works in the city. Nothing.
I'm glad you mentioned that. The school CEO, all of that's been quiet lately. I haven't heard a peep.
Well, she doesn't have to do anything. Nobody has to. Look, I'm about a tough love. If you're not doing your job, get the hell out.
And my understanding is all of these students will be going to the next grade. There's no plan to fail anybody. And when Fox did that special on Augusta Savage, where people were they were saying kids were in school and these kids were locked up, they got money for years. Why isn't, what's her name, Cummins, Isabel, the lady with I swear she looked, but why isn't Isabel Cummins on top of that?
So Isabel Cummings doesn't have the jurisdiction to do the city schools, although I think there's some
digging in the state's attorney, but she took her ass over there.
But the MOU there, from what I understand, because there were some cases coming to our office about the MBE program in the city schools. Don't get me started, because that's another issue. But I think there's a memo of understanding where she's able to investigate some cases, but that's not really her jurisdiction. But
Mosby ain't a jurisdiction, but she stuck her nose over there messing with the woman. See, I was not.
Fox News likes to broadcast things when it comes about the demise of us. But they never. Again, they were right there. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry, Donnie, because it's the truth and it's a fact. They were right there at that march and protest, and they chose not to report on that because that might actually get people upset. And that might actually force them to do business with minority businesses. And God forbid Fox News, pushes any of that. So I want to commend Ethan McLeod of Baltimore Business Journal for doing an investigation after seeing what he saw at our protest. He did an investigative report. Please look at that. It came out 2 weeks ago. That'll give you what's going on. And when a reputable paper like that does an investigative journalism, something is wrong.
Why won't the Sun do an investigation?
The Sun was there. They didn't do anything either. So I'm just calling it like it is.
Hold up. I got black people still today. They called me up. Did you see what the Sun wrote? And it's like, back up. I'm Be More News. Don't come over here holding up the Baltimore Sun. Don't come over here. I know that's the church you go to.
They were there.
We are more married to the Democratic Party than we are to the cause of black people. Blacks are more married to the Democratic Party than we are to our own damn interests. And it's disgusting.
Right.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll fight again another day. Stand up for the people.
Our mayor's got an afro. Woo!
You better get a ball head because we coming for that scalp. Keep watching BlackUSA.News. We'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. for Black Business Roundtable. Tamara, we salute you. You are the 90, the Maroon Queen, Baltimore. Pull out the machete.
I'm a bad gal. I'm a bad gal, and I'm gonna keep on being a bad gal. Let's go.
Bust the cap in the Bati boys, okay.